Howdy, if this is your first time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Michelle, and we're the Wandering Shores.
So we have been full-time for how many years?
Well, it's almost 4.
Yeah, September will be 4 years full-time living on the road in our RV with our 4 initial cats and now with our 3 after unfortunately losing Nico about 2 months ago. So one of the things we thought might be helpful is to kind of share a realistic account of how much it costs to live on the road. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be doing this monthly. We're aiming for either the first or the second Wednesday of each month. The time of release may change a little bit based upon the metrics that YouTube gives us. But we're going to set it up as a premiere. And for those of you who haven't used premieres before, what that means is the video will go live at a very specific time for everybody. And at that same time, we will be watching it with you online, and we can manage and respond to comments in the video. So if you have questions or whatever while the video is playing, we'll be able to answer those. So it's going to be something we haven't tried before, but we think it's going to be helpful. But yeah, so if you're watching this and it's already premiered, unfortunately we can't answer the chat. But if you're watching this during premiere, we're on there with you. So what we have done is we have gone back and we are going to share with you 3 things. We're going to share with you how much we spent in June of 2024. We're going to share with you how much we've spent up to and including June of 2024 for this current year, which is 2014. So January to June of 2024, sorry, not 14. And then we're going to share with you how much we spent on average for the year of 2023 as well, to give you somewhat of a comparison. We want you folks to have a realistic view on how much it really costs to live full-time like we do nomadically on the road. And we're going to have a few details we have to give. This video is going to be a little bit longer than the normal one because we're going to include the 2023 expenses. But other than that, after this first one, we won't be including that. We'll just be going on a monthly basis based on our expenses from the previous month. The one last thing I want to say before we get into the numbers is that for things that are like insurance payments for the RV or for the truck, those are going to be included in the actual month that we paid them, and we're not going to go ahead and divide them out amongst the 6-month or 12-month payment that it actually is per month, because we always pay ours for either a 12-month or a 6-month period. So when you hear the insurance premiums in a specific month, that's because we paid for the whole year, but they will show up in a monthly average across the entire year that we've been in currently. So we're going to start with expense number 1, and we're going from least expensive to most expensive, at least this past month, and we'll get into more details about that because June, we're bleeding money, folks.
It was a doozy.
Yeah, and July's not starting off much better. So, Michelle, what's the first expense we're going to talk about?
Our first expense is medical. And for the month of June, we spent $18.
Yep.
So far this year, on average, we've spent $10. And for the year 2023, on average per month, we spent $38.
Yeah, and we've got a little cheat sheet down here, so that's why we were going to be looking up and down. So medical is going to include, Michelle's got a cancer insurance premium if we had to get any type of medicine, those types of things. It doesn't necessarily include healthcare coverage and things like that. So medical, $18 for the month of June. The next one we've got listed as recreation. We didn't want 7,000 different categories, so we listed recreation. Recreation is going to be when we go out and do things such as maintenance on the bike, All Trails membership, our workout gear, which is X3. So that's what we consider recreation on our budget or on our expenses. We spent $44 in June. We averaged $33 per month for 2024, and in 2023 we spent about $30 a month. So that stayed fairly consistent across the last 2 years. Next thing is utilities. Now, utilities has changed a little bit in how we do things, and I'll explain that later when we get to business expenses. But utilities primarily are subscriptions, Netflix, Paramount Plus, those types of things. We also include gas for the generator, but not for the truck. So generator gas and propane, as well as if we had to pay any fees for dumping our gray or black tank, we include those in utilities. So in June, $65. 2024, we spent an average of $89, and in 2023, we spent an average of $112 per month. Lodging and travel. This is where it gets a little bit confusing. So what we include in there is campground fees, airline tickets when we fly back home to see our friends and family, any type of permits that we need that would be like living permits. So, for example, the Arizona Land Trust requires a $25 permit per year. That was also included in travel and lodging. But primarily, most of the expense in there is if we do stay at a campground, then it's included in there. So, last month we spent $105. We spent on average $104 in 2024, and in 2023 we spent an average of $116. So it stayed consistent. We spent about $100 to $110 per month on lodging or travel across the year. Very little of it is actually campgrounds. Most of it is airfare when we've flown back to Cleveland or Indiana. Dining. Michelle, that's next.
Yeah, our dining expenses for June, that was $212.
Way more than we like to spend.
Us.
Yeah, way more. You'll see.
Yeah, we pride ourselves at not going out to eat. Yeah. In 2024, our average was $129, and in 2023, our average was $57.
Yeah, so we don't go out to eat very much. We spent more dining, and I think a function of that is for about half of June, we were back at home in Indiana with friends and family and going out to eat with them and visiting Toledo and Cleveland and stuff. So we spent way more than we usually do, almost $150 more in dining for the month of June.
And we do enjoy eating out, but it is quite an expense that we try not to have.
Yeah, rarely do we go out. Our next expense is business. So what's included in our business expense is going to be things related to the Wandering Shores LLC. Any ads that we run on social media, we've run those a few times over the years. We've got one running right now on Facebook. That'll be included. Our phone expenses, our cell phones, our Starlink. Recently we bought a drone. That's in there as well. So anything related to the Wandering Shores LLC is going to be in the business. And in June of 2024, we spent $514. And in 2024 overall, average month, $518. And back in 23, we spent an average of $445. So that gives you an idea of kind of what our expenses are going out related to the business. That is being social media influencers, I guess you call us, on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Home expenses. So what do we include in home? We include home repairs. We include household items, toiletries, things that aren't necessarily groceries. We also include everything for the pets, and we also include clothing or anything like that. Again, you guys have watched this channel long enough, we are typically wearing the same 7 things. So we don't spend a lot on clothing. But
and if we do buy something, then something has to leave the camper.
Yeah, and that's more related to space. So we try to donate it if we can. So for home expenses, we spent in June $555. In 2024 overall, we spent $480 a month. And in 2023, we actually spent on average $818 a month. And a lot of that is because we upgraded solar and did a lot of projects on the RV last year that we listed under home repair, but not necessarily the trailer expenses, and we'll get to that, like the new axles that we put on in January. Next item, Michelle?
Groceries.
Everybody's got to eat, folks.
That's right.
And we do too.
Yes. In the month of June, we spent $826. So far this year, we've spent on average $664. And in 2023, on average, we spent $667.
So yeah, we spent about $200 more last month in groceries, and I think a function of that is just having easier access to groceries. The cost of groceries are going up as well. I mean, everybody knows that, so that's a little bit of it. But we average about $650 a month in groceries. But last month we spent $826, so we were a little bit over. Now, the two biggest expenses that we have, and they're both categorically added under auto. First one is fuel. How much does it cost to drive around like we do? Last month, folks, we left from Indiana through Illinois to Iowa to South Dakota and then around South Dakota, including several trips from Custer, South Dakota to Rapid City because we were having truck issues, which is in the next expense. But we spent $938 in fuel last month. We spent how much normally in 2024, Michelle?
$482 on average.
And last year, how much did we spend?
$257
Yeah,
on average.
so last year we spent an average of $260 a month in fuel, and this past month we spent almost $1,000. So that's going to be getting cut down very quickly as we begin to sit stationary more and are not traveling thousands and thousands of miles to get to our next destination. And the final, if we call it kick in the groin, for last month in June were what we put under is auto services. This includes, well, last month it included truck stuff. We got new tires, we got a tune-up, we've had issues with our suspension. As you guys know, if you've been watching the channel, that's a big expense, and unfortunately it hasn't ended. That'll be in next month for July's expenses. But last month we spent $2,823 in auto expenses. It's a cost of doing business. You know, no matter whether we're living in a house or not, we're still going to have auto expenses when it comes to service. But you know, last month we spent almost $3,000 in getting the truck repaired, and our average for 2024 so far is $450. And that's in part because several of the other months we've had truck stuff done. But in 2023, we spent $76 a month. So it's kind of all been piled up over the last 6 months or so that we've had a lot of auto expenses. We had the axles replaced while we were up in Lake Havasu on the RV, and that was considered an auto expense the way we listed here. So that was part of the average of almost $450 a month so far this year. But yeah, so grand total for the month of June, we spent right on $6,100. That's a lot. We cannot continue to stay on the road if we're spending $6,100 a month. It's just unmanageable. But the good thing is we know that at least $3,000 of that or so was because of the unexpected truck expense. And we had some money saved up from when we did gate guarding down in Texas.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was kind of a savior for us. But the truck expenses have not stopped, and we'll share that in July. But we spent $6,100 in the month of June. We averaged so far this year spending $2,958, so basically right around $3,000 a month is our average. But in 2023, we spent $2,600 a month. So we're spending on average about $400 more per month so far in 2024, but we're hoping to start dwindling that number down very quickly and get down closer to the $2,500 a month. So realistically, over the almost 4 years we've been on the road, we average around $2,500 to $2,800 a month in living expenses. And everything else associated with those. But the 2024 has hit us a little hard in the pocketbook, and June hit us pretty big with $6,100 spent, but that is by far not the norm. So
Yeah, definitely not.
So we hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be back next month. So in August, we'll be talking about our July expenses. If you liked this, please give us a thumbs up, write a comment. If you're watching this right now live, I guess if you will, as a YouTube premiere, please take time to give us feedback on whether this was helpful or not, or what you'd like to see us talk about. And everybody's expenses are different, and these are the categories we've divvied them up into and are sharing. So we hope hopeful that this is helpful, and we'll see you in our next video.